us do some questions and answers. I think you can ask any one of us three. You can direct a question to one of us, or you can direct a question to everyone and hear everyone's opinion, or you can whatever. Basically, is that right, Venerable?
I think if we all answer one question, it'll take too long. We could have it coming to anyone.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So I have a written question already. Should I start with a written question? Is that a good idea? Yeah? Okay. So I'll start with the written one that kind of gets the ball rolling, and then you can kind of keep rolling afterwards. So, dear Ajahn Brahmali, how does right view arise without stillness? How does stillness arise without virtue? How does virtue arise without right view? It's a good question, right? It's a really nice question. Aren't they all equally important? A spiral of goodness in the path to liberation. That's a very good question, because right view is often said to be the consequence of the whole Noble Eightfold Path. It culminates in right view. It's like the stream entry. Stream entry is often called ditthipatto in the sutta. Ditthipatto means attained to view. Obviously means attained to right view. So what about the right view at the beginning of the Noble Eightfold Path? Is that right view, or is it a different kind of right view? And the way that it works is that right view comes in a large number of degrees. That is how you resolve this dilemma. And so there is like the initial right view. You hear the teaching of the Buddha, think, yeah, the Buddha is right. Okay, I'm going to follow the Buddha. And that is an acceptance of the awakening of the Buddha, which means you have right view to that extent. To the extent that you follow the Buddha, you agree with his ideas. You have some degree of right view. And then the whole path of Buddhism can be understood as a gradual purification of that right view. The right view gradually getting more and more powerful until, supported by all the other factors, you gain samma samadhi, the deep stillness of the mind, and then you get the full right view as a consequence. That's how it works. So actually one of the very important things that we need to do on the path is to build up right view, purify right view, make it more and more powerful. For example, as I mentioned before, by contemplating impermanence. This is one of the areas that the Buddha says we should contemplate. So, okay, I'm not going to say much more because I think you get the general idea. So, yes, please.
So on that impermanence topic specifically, I was contemplating on that, and I wanted to know, does impermanence lead to suffering? And if it leads to suffering, is that one of the reasons that, so to understand that connection will lead to understanding of the third aspect, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, which I don't really understand as well. So if you can elaborate on that. Also, how come then, if I have a headache and if that's impermanent, it gives me happiness, how is that a suffering?
Well, okay, so if you have a headache, you already have a problem, right? So you can't really say that.
I am happy that it's impermanent.
You're right, but you already have a problem because I have a sore throat. So you already have dukkha, and then you have there's different kinds of dukkha. There's dukkha, and then there is viparinama dukkha. And dukkha is just the ordinary suffering of having a sore throat. That's already suffering. But what if you're happy? That's when impermanence is bad, right? So the thing is that either you have suffering, which is real, the suffering of a sore throat, or you may be happy, and then impermanence is suffering. So regardless, it's suffering. So I agree that impermanence is a good thing if you have dukkha, but the point is you already have dukkha at that point, so it doesn't really solve anything.
The base of the whole existence.
It's also just the kind
of the mind.
So it's more than just the viparinama or the anicca dukkha, the dukkha due to anicca. So all kind of dukkha, all kind of suffering is included. That's called dukkha, and then the viparinama dukkha and the sankhara dukkha. Sankhara dukkha is the most profound one, and sankhara dukkha really is the dukkha of all compounded things, all phenomena basically. And that is like a comparison, if you like, you can compare to nibbana. Nibbana is the kind of the the end of those phenomena, yeah, and so Nibbana is better, so that means all compounded things are a problem.
That phenomena is not there in the first place. Is that right?
The realization that
it's a realization that the phenomena of things that are permanent, the fact that something is permanent is not there in the first.
Yeah, that's what Nibbana is on the one hand. Nibbana is many things. It's a couple of different things depending on the context. But so sankhara, dukkha, it can be understood in many different ways. But let's not go there because they're getting too sidetracked. Okay. But coming back to this idea of why it is that, why is it that impermanence, and dukkha go together? If something is impermanent, is dukkha, is what it says in the sutras, and if something is dukkha and impermanent, then it is anatta. This is kind of one of the standard phrases in the sutras. The three are linked very closely to each other. And the idea is simply that we tend to attach to things in the world. The sense of self, as long as you have a sense of self, you will attach. It's one of the qualities of a sense of self. It holds on to things. And one of the basic things that the sense of self holds on to is those aspects that you take to be that self. Yeah, because a self has to have certain qualities, otherwise it doesn't exist. And at the very least, you will take those qualities as permanent, or because you're attached to them, you want them to be permanent. And so, because we have a sense of self, we will take certain things to be, or we want to hold on to certain things, but that holding on is going to be challenged by impermanence. And that's why it always ends up with dukkha. As long as you have a sense of self, you will suffer as a consequence of impermanence. They come together like that. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's okay. Good. I'm glad you approve. That's very very helpful. Anyone want to say anything? You want to add to my? No, please. Yeah.
So my question is about the concept of lack of free will and whether or not, in your opinion, that means that our futures are predestined. And if they are predestined, therefore, does that mean, how to explain that? There was a period of time where I struggled deeply with depression, and one of the things that I struggled with was a very deeply existential question. If the lack of free will does exist, and therefore our futures are predestined, what is the point in going through the course of life's sequential steps in chronological order if you will ultimately live the life in a certain way, in any way, no matter what you do, and eventually you die? I don't struggle with this anymore, but at that time, it was a very, what is the point of doing this if I'm still going to get married and do this and do this and do this and do this?
Yeah. Okay. I guess I should answer that because I'm the one who's talking about free will and things. So I'll answer that one. So the point is that the point is not whether there's free will or not. The point is whether your choices matter. Yeah, that's kind of the point. There's a difference between the idea of free will, the kind of traditional European idea, the Calvinistic kind of idea of things being predestined, is that your life is destined to have a certain end when you get born, and it will have that end regardless. The choices you make don't matter. The choices are irrelevant. Yeah, you can do A or B, or be kind or be bad, and still you're going to go to either to heaven or to hell when you die. It's already, the moment you're born, it's already foretold. But that is not the Buddhist idea. What you do matters enormously. Yeah, if you don't get out of bed in the morning, you're just going to lie in bed all day. That's going to have bad consequences. If you instead go out and you do your best to do something good in the world, that's going to have good consequences for you. So your choices matter. The question is whether those choices are conditioned, by other things, or whether they are come from free will. And I said they're conditioned, but they're conditioned by all kinds of things. If you come here, they're conditioned, right? They're conditioned. That makes you more kind, maybe. It makes you more peaceful if you come here. So you are conditioned to become more kind and peaceful. So the idea with discussing this problem of free will, if you understand that you are fully conditioned and you accept that, you make sure that the conditions you put yourself into are going to lead you in the right direction. Yeah, you start to think, actually, this is really important to get the good conditioning. So in this sense, it has a very positive effect on how you live your life. And you start kind of investigating maybe the suttas more, the teaching of the Buddha more. You hang out with the kind of people who lead you in the right direction more. You stop wasting your time with silly things more. You do more right things because you understand that conditioning is such an important thing in life. That is a consequence of thinking like this. If you think there's free will, well, I can always choose to do the right thing anyway, so, who cares? I can just kind of do whatever. And then you don't understand the power of conditioning fully. That's the point.
What if you don't see, if you're at a place where there's just stagnancy and you don't see the point of following the steps, even if it's good or bad, and it's out of it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sure, I would say that's just the wrong view. Yeah, because it's stagnant. If it is stagnant, it's because of a reason. It's a cause because of stagnancy. And so you want to find the causes behind why it is stagnating, why your life is stagnating. That is the right way of thinking about it. Okay, it's stagnating because I'm thinking about life in this way. Maybe I should think more about it like this. I'm doing this, I'm not doing that. There's a reason for that. Maybe my way of thinking isn't very, very wise. How can I change the way I think about things? And you uncover, you start digging, and you find the reasons why things are stagnating. Yeah, that would be the right way of thinking about it, as far as I can see here. Yeah? Okay. Good. Darren.
Yesterday evening and today, we've been talking about good people and bad people, and just following off the back of that conversation and my thoughts over the last 24 hours. Are we just people or sentient beings, and we're just making different choices, and whether they're wholesome or not? So does that mean that people aren't good or bad? They're just people making maybe not so wholesome choices and decisions and actions. So if you think of all the people in the world that create these wars, you try and then give them compassion. It's not permanent. They're not just a bad person. They might have a serious mental illness, but they're not a bad person. It's just conditions of where they got them, and it's. So I can have a bad day or wake up the wrong side and have maybe not act so skillfully. But I don't think that would make me a bad person. It just means that...
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I think that's a very important point, that it's much better to think of a person making a bad choice or having a bad act rather than thinking of as a bad person, because then it becomes like, something essential. Yeah, you are bad. It's kind of, you're stamped with bad, and that's it. But of course, in Buddhism, we don't believe in that sort of essentialism, or whatever you want to call it. There are no essential aspects. Everything is always changing. So no one is bad. You could say that some people are good, however, like the Arahant, because they can't go back. So some people are good as long as it lasts until they die, and then they are nothing. It's kind of all gone. So no, I think that's a very skillful way of thinking about things, and it's very important that to also remember that even if people are bad for, say, a short while, we don't blame them for that, because that badness is also conditioned into them, and so actually instead we have compassion for them, because badness leads to very bad outcomes in the future, and so they will suffer because of that, and so badness is not a judgment in that sense. It's more an opening to have compassion and understanding of people.
Maybe could I say one thing about this good, bad? I do find those terminologies a little bit problematic, simply because the words bad and good, right and wrong tend to be, maybe they're too closely connected to religions that are more moralistically judgmental. So I actually do have some misgivings about the use of those words, and I agree that wholesome and unwholesome actions, or skillful and unskillful behaviours, or thoughts, or conditioning even, if you want to go further back, is much more helpful when we're regarding any person. And I would even say there's no such thing as a good person. There's such a thing as good behaviour, good intention, maybe right view, but even the idea of right view and wrong view, it's right in a certain context, in that it leads to the goal that the Buddha is talking about, the goal of liberation. In that sense, it's right. So I do find those terminologies a little bit confusing because they seem to be, I think we've developed this language because, of course, until we're enlightened, we do see people in terms of real entities that are maybe more solid than they really are. But I think when we start to change our language, it also helps us to change the way we look as well over time.
No, I'm not going to be cheeky. I was going to be cheeky.
Can.
I was going to be cheeky.
Go on.
No, that's okay. Another time. It's not enough time to be cheeky, so I'll restrain myself. Okay. So, please. Yeah.
Could I ask about understanding of Buddhism and how much emphasis the meditation is there? And if you don't practice meditation, will it affect your going into deep understanding of Buddhism?
You can do that.
Well, it is part of the Noble Eightfold Path. So the Buddha wouldn't have put it in there if it wasn't necessary. Well, that's easy. No answer. But it's kind of for me, meditation is like having a shower every day. It's you accumulate during the day, you don't realize it, you just start accumulating thoughts and emotions and just stuff, and it just builds up over your life, and one day you have a mental breakdown. My father retired at 70 and just didn't know what was 65 and what was the meaning of his life. You just sort of keep going and keep going and keep going. So meditation, even as a layperson, every day just helps you to clear the clutter of your busy lives. So, to me, it's really not that I made up this simile, but it's like taking a shower. You just clear up the debris of your mind every day so that you start the next day with a clearer sheet, a clearer mind. And that just allows you to go a little bit deeper every time in your life. You see a little bit more. You thought you knew everything, but you don't. So yes, that's what I think.
Okay.
So this meditation, to me, meditation helps me to be mindful, maybe slow down, because I was very active in my head. My thoughts were going really fast, but I feel that I have slowed down a little bit. Maybe the others might not feel it like that, but I feel that when I see things happening around me, I have a little bit it's not a control. I can see that the reaction is a bit slow. So does that help me to go in the meditation? How does it help me to go in the path of it is going in the path of Nibbana? How does it help me to go there, meditation?
Well, it just starts to unravel how we are looking at the world,
Yeah.
When you slow down, you start to notice, that was a bit of irritation. Previously, I just rushed ahead and said what I had to say and did what I had to do. But now I realize, maybe that doesn't feel so good. You slow down a little bit and you are a little bit more aware. It purifies the mind a little step at a time. So that slowing down helps you to see yourself a little clearer and helps you to see your defilements.
Yeah. And that helps me to stop making sanskar. Is that the way that it's helping me towards Nibbana?
I would hope so.
What I feel is be mindful every time without letting any bad thoughts coming to you. So that I think is really the strength and the power we have to be someone good, always watching the thoughts.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, please, please.
For
Sir.
Ajahn Brahmali.
Yeah.
It's about rites and rituals.
Yeah.
So there is no rites and rituals on the path. So I understand that it's not by having any rites and rituals that we're going to end suffering. It's by our own practice. But then I thought, does that also include all the views we can have, like I don't know, rules about politeness or etiquettes or cultures, or what type of glass we need to drink tea in, or things like that. Is that very, very broad, or is that just about the spiritual practice and burning incense or things like that?
Okay. So, are you referring to the three fetters, Sila, Mata, Paramasa? Yeah. Okay. Well, the first thing about that, it doesn't actually mean rites and rituals. Yeah, that's kind of interesting here. So Sila actually just means virtue or morality, like we've been using it all day as a foundation of the practice. And Vata, or actually the word is actually Vata. Vata means like an observance. It's like something that you know, a kind of practice that you do. You know, you observe meditating 1 hour in the morning or something like that, and you do it every day, whether you fall asleep or whatever, you still do it because it's an observance, yeah, something that you do. So that's actually what it means. It doesn't mean rites and rituals, which is sometimes the translation, and it's actually a faulty translation here. But rites and rituals, I think, are perfectly fine. Yeah, we do quite a lot of rituals in Buddhism. We shouldn't do too much because it becomes silly at a certain point, and we should understand why we do them. We shouldn't do them because of, you know, if you do this ritual, then you will go to heaven or whatever. That kind of is the wrong way of thinking, obviously. But we do it because sometimes it's nice. Yeah, you bow down to a Buddha statue. Why? Because it feels good. That's kind of the idea of bowing down to a Buddha statue. It's not to kind of diminish yourself or anything like that. It's just, actually, it's a bit humbling, and humbling is okay. Yeah? It's good to be humble, at least in a certain way of being humble. And when you bow down to the Buddha, because you respect the qualities in the Buddha, you respect the wisdom, the stillness, the kindness, then you actually develop those qualities in yourself by bowing down to the Buddha. And that's the beauty of it. So if you do it in the right way, it's actually very powerful. You can call it a ritual, but it's a ritual with real meaning. And so this is the idea of kind of, you know, of understanding, using rituals in a wise way. And that's kind of when it becomes very powerful. Okay, if you drink tea out of the right cup, what, you are uncultured, using the wrong kind of cup for tea or whatever. I think that is just a social conditioning, yeah, and it's kind of a silliness. It's kind of completely irrelevant. But when it comes to politeness, however, it's good to be polite, right? Because that is also a kind of kindness. And yes, there are rituals with kindness. You shake someone's hand, you listen when they speak, and these kind of things. These are kind of little rituals that we do. And yes, we should do those simply because it is kindness. And the Buddha himself, when you look at some of the definitions, I think it's a definition of, what definition is it? I think it's the definition of right speech, actually, of gentle speech. One of the words that is used there, I think, is pori, means something like courteous. Yeah, so you are courteous, right? Yeah, that's actually part of right speech and part of right action. And so to that extent, if you call that a ritual, then yes, it is. It actually matters. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, okay. Please. Yeah, please. Go for it. Yeah.
Thank you for your teachings. I've got a question about faith. What would be your advice to cultivate faith, especially when one starts to learn Dhamma, but also when one is a bit more advanced, but doesn't want to get caught up in just looking at the teachings as an accumulation of practices, something that holds it together. Perhaps a piece of advice on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that question actually, because I do think if we see the teachings just as a piece of advice or lots of practices, then it can become a little bit dry. And there's also the danger that we can look at the teachings as something that we have to do or that we have to apply to kind of improve ourselves, improve our minds. And, you know, we take it on from, a sense of self in a way that we need to be a better person, we need to make improvement, you know. And somehow we can do it, you know, if we just do the right thing, if we just follow the teachings that the Buddha laid down, we have the power to make things happen. And it can get a little bit brittle and tense. And I've actually noticed some monastics who go ahead with obviously a degree of faith, but they end up drying up. The practice becomes quite brittle because there's too much of a sense of self involved. So to me, I guess, I don't really use the word faith so much, but I like the word inspired confidence, like a kind of confidence that comes through dipping our toe into the teachings and getting some tangible results, and then the inspiration that arises from that when we start to see the changes in our life and the changes in our hearts. And that inspiration is a kind of emotion. It's a beautiful, wholesome quality in the mind that's actually felt. It's something we can experience. And it's something that gives us a lot of energy to take the next step and then the next step. And it also, for me, has a sense of increasing reverence towards the Buddha as a teacher and towards the Sangha, the people who've, you know, taken those steps further on the path. And of course, the Buddha having fully awakened to the highest possible qualities that are possible to develop in a human being and gone beyond this world, you know, actually ended suffering completely. So I think the more we practice, the more that inspired confidence develops in the teachings and in the Buddha as our teacher as well. And we can, to some extent, start to see them develop in our heart. So this is when the confidence really takes off. And it's very humbling. Yeah, we were just talking about bowing in the last question. And I remember very clearly the first time I bowed. And it was actually a result of having practiced a lot and had my life transformed by the Dhamma. And my teacher happened to be walking along around a pagoda, and there were lots and lots of Indian ladies lined up, and they had their kind of beautiful shawls on the floor, and they were sort of paying respects. And actually it was Goenka, he was a lay teacher, but quite a powerful teacher, and my first teacher who gave me so much benefit. You know, he taught a method that was very effective for me. And as he was walking along and chanting metta, I just had this overwhelming sense of gratitude, and I just found myself naturally bowing. So it was almost as though the faith came first and that sort of expression of it came later through having experienced the results. So I guess qualities like recollecting on the Dhamma, on the Buddha, but also practices like loving kindness that just give some moisture, some kind of real beautiful emotional sense of the path, are very helpful in developing faith. Yeah.
I've been of the view for quite a while now that all acts that we do are selfish. You know, even if it's in service of like pure intentions, it's because it makes us feel good. So that's like, but you know, the terminology is very negative. You go and view on. Let's frame that all.
Yeah, so it's okay to to desire happiness, but the selfishness actually is that if you think about selfishness, really it is a kind of emotion of this is mine, and it can be tight and it's kind of narrow and small, and that emotion is a negative one. But it's okay, but to be selfish in a kind of larger context, it's not when that emotion is actually missing, but you know what you're doing will lead to your happiness down the track. Yeah. That kind of selfishness, in quotes, is actually not really selfishness anymore. It's a different kind of thing here. That is okay, because that kind of happiness as well, when you develop that sort of happiness, it is not kind of me against them. It's actually all of us together moving towards happiness. So, but if it's kind of me against them, yeah, okay, this is my stuff. Keep your hands away. Yeah, this is yeah, that kind of thing is a very unpleasant kind of selfishness, and that is the one you want to avoid. If you want to develop the higher kind of selfishness, if you, again, it's the wrong word, but a high kind of happiness, actually you have to be the opposite of selfish. You have to be truly generous. You have to want to give up everything that is yours and be kind of really open-hearted and kind of share with everyone. And that doesn't feel like selfishness anymore. Yeah, it feels exactly the opposite. But in a higher way, it still leads to happiness down the track, and you know that. But it feels very different. So you need to kind of define the term very clearly to understand what's going on. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have a question about retreat, but when's the next online retreat?
The next online retreat is from the 18th to the 20th of this month.
Bunkies.
Sorry?
Bunkies retreat.
Online, did you say?
Yeah.
I've no idea.
You did a lot of retreats online, they were wonderful.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I did everyone by all of you.
Okay. Well, the next one is going to be a while, actually. Yeah. So just keep your ears open or whatever.
We are inviting him again in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
I know. Because next year, I think he's busy. We all could. We all could, I guess. Yeah.
No, I have to go to YouTube.
You had to go to YouTube. Yeah. Okay. Good. YouTube temple. That's good. Yeah.
But YouTube doesn't talk to me.
Yeah. It's nice to be in person, isn't it? It actually makes a difference.
But Ajahn, you are giving two talks during our Vasa.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Which is very nice. So during the time that I'm away for my rains retreat, we have a whole series of bhikkhunis mostly, and also a couple of monks, including Ajahn Brahmali, who are going to give online teachings. So there you'll get an opportunity to ask questions as well. Sorry?
I'll come when Bunky is teaching.
Okay.
If I have my helper.
Let's see what happens.
The explanation about dependent ordination. But it's,
the whole thing.
What do you want to know? What would you like to know about it?
There is a book outside, but yeah, which aspect? Can we talk a little bit about... Can we? Okay, just the whole thing? Shall I do something?
Please, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I don't really want to go through all the links, but the basic problem that we have is that this whole existence, where we are now, started from avidya, delusion is my favourite translation of that word. So because of not knowing about impermanence, about suffering, about non-self, we were born into this existence, right? Into this body and mind. And because of this, there's consciousness and there's sankharas, right? Reactivity, all those things in a sense arise together and then give rise to the senses. Yeah, so we have the eyes, the ears, the nose, tongue, body, and the mind, these 6 sense doors through which we experience the world, basically. So our entire world is basically made up of these 6 senses. There's nothing really outside of that. And it's conditioned by everything that went before, including that delusion, right? So this sometimes, well, it does mean that already at the point of contact of an object with its sense, by the time that eye consciousness arises, there's already delusion involved, right? So that means that quite usually what happens is we see something, it might be a person or it might be, it's usually a person, to be honest, because that's where we have the most problem, right? And we find that we have a feeling of which is either pleasant or unpleasant, and then we react. Yeah, so from this contact with the world, we have a feeling, and then we react, usually with craving. And craving can be positive or negative, in the sense that we want more of it or we want to get rid of it, right? The craving not to have that particular type of contact. And because of this, suffering just increases, continues to increase. You know, when there's craving, that craving then becomes stronger, it becomes clinging, holding on to. And that becomes, in a way, the fuel for more suffering, for basically sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, and rebirth itself. So this is the bad news, but the really, really good news, this is what most people understand, right, as dependent origination. So we go through that whole sequence, but we have to actually experience it to understand how it works. So we can start, obviously, at the level of the senses, sense contact, trying to see how we're responding to the things that come in contact with our senses, and trying to develop more skillful reactions and undermine craving that way. And we can use feeling as well to help with that, being aware of the feelings that arise, and just noticing how we cause so much suffering for ourselves when we try to hang on or we try to push away whatever feelings that arise. But this is kind of limited in its scope. And for a long time in my practice, I thought that that was the place you can actually unravel the whole chain. And then I realized that actually, even by the time we experience feeling, we're already twisting it and bending it according to our likes and dislikes. So the good news is there's another sequence that starts from the point of suffering. Yeah? So in a way you could say that's the point after cravings happened, that's the point of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. And the other sequence, which is called dependent liberation, which Ajahn Brahmali has been referring to during this whole tour so far, is a chain that goes from suffering to confidence. Yeah, and this is absolutely brilliant. It's a very similar chain to the one that starts with Sila. Yeah, I mean, suffering, I think, goes to confidence and to Sila together, to virtue. Because when we have a little bit of insight into suffering and a little bit of right view, then we realize that suffering is universal. It's not only ourselves who suffer, but suffering is part of existence, and no one's free from that. And when we hear the teachings of the Buddha, at least for me, when I heard the teachings of the Buddha, it made sense of suffering for me. I realized there's a purpose to it, and there can be a compassionate response. So if we understand suffering even a little bit, and we understand it correctly in terms of its universality, then compassion arises. Yeah? And out of that compassion, we start to be much more careful about how we live, how we speak, even how we use our minds. So Sila gets developed. We start to live virtuous lives, beautiful lives, based on compassion. Of course, not all the time, right? But generally our motivations become more and more compassionate and loving and non-harmful. And from there we get this joy of living a good life and the joy of non-regret. And that can take us deep into meditation. And just to, follow on from Roy's question as well about happiness, then we start to experience a different kind of happiness that comes from the purity of the mind. It's not the happiness of sensuality, it's not this hedonistic happiness, but it's more a happiness that's aligned to having a purpose and a meaning in life, and also a happiness of living a virtuous life. So that's called joy or pamoja, gladness if you like, and that can lead to all the beautiful, pleasant feelings that arise in meditation, the rapture or piti, and the tranquility, the deep happiness or contentment of the mind, and then that unity of mind, the unification in samadhi, in deep stillness, where there's absolute contentment and actually no impact at all from the sensory world. So this is the way out. And as I'm sure you know, from samadhi, we have a chance to see things as they really are. So if we can do that, we're weakening delusion. We're weakening that first link in the chain. And bit by bit, the more we can do this and overcome the hindrances, the more that delusion gets, in a sense, starved. It gets starved of its nutriment, which is the 5 hindrances. So it's good news, but of course, right now we're in it. We've been born due to delusion. We're in this process somehow, but we can lessen the speed, but also we can learn to respond in more skillful ways when we're aware of the sequence, and not only trying to curb the unwholesome qualities of the mind and the unwholesome reactions, but develop the skillful, wholesome reactions and the wholesome emotions instead. Yeah, that's really what's going to give us a lot of encouragement on the path. Is that okay? maybe, can we see if there's anyone else? Because we've only got probably time for one more question. But you can always talk to us at the end. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. Anyone who hasn't spoken? All right. Well, you can speak to us at the end also. You're very welcome.
So thank you everyone for today and for this visit. You were just mentioning something about purpose, and in Ajahn's talk earlier in the week, you were talking about how there isn't purpose. So I was just wondering what you were referring to.
There isn't purpose.
Yeah, we were saying with the world, with a lot of things, that there is. What is the purpose? You know. Or, so what are we referring to here?
Me.
Yeah, and what is the purpose then?
Obviously, the kind of typical Theravada early Buddhist purpose, ultimately, honestly, is to get out of samsara while you have the chance. But we're in samsara, so for me, the purpose, in a sense, is to develop as much compassion, as much loving kindness, do as much good as I possibly can on the way. So to me, that is a purpose, because that not only helps to lessen the suffering of those around us to some degree, especially in trying to share the Dhamma, right? It also, hopefully, develops the spiritual qualities that I need to actually end this whole thing. So for me, the purpose is very clearly ending suffering. And I have the confidence in the Buddha that the only way to do that is end this whole round of rebirth, of old age, sickness and death, and coming back again and again and again. I mean, even at 15, I had this feeling like I just don't want to do this anymore. And at that time, because I didn't have the Buddha's teachings, I felt quite depressed and quite hopeless, really, about things. But there was just this little glimmer in me that felt there must be some purpose to this. In other words, a purpose to the suffering. Because it was clearly, there was a lot of suffering in the world, and I felt I was experiencing not only my suffering, but I had a sense of this heaviness in the world in general. I don't know how people can watch the news and not feel it, You just have to see what human beings are capable of doing to each other, and you think, why? Why does this happen, And how can we try to, I guess, remove those tendencies in ourselves that could lead to that kind of harm? So for me, there is a purpose in that suffering has a meaning, and it can lead to, instead of dwelling in more suffering, it can lead to deep compassion for others. And of course, the deepest compassion is being able to practice and share the Dhamma. So that for me is my purpose. But it's different for everyone. And whatever you're doing in your life, if you're helping to reduce suffering and helping to bring, to direct people towards a kind of much more beautiful, reliable, pure happiness that's good for themselves and others, then you're doing your bit. It doesn't matter whether that's as a bus driver, as a doctor, as a mother, however you do it, you can bring those qualities into the world. So I think that's absolutely, it gives so much meaning to life. But for that we have to actually be honest about suffering and feel moved to act, I think. Does that make sense? All right, so can we carry on?
We can carry on, yeah.
Can we come to you afterwards, because we want to keep everything on track for everyone here, and also...
You answered the question.
I answered. Is that... Yeah, you're still welcome to talk to us. I really don't... I want to give you time. That's great. Good. So is it... would you like to end with the last meditation, or...?
I think it would be nice to have it. We haven't heard you yet doing
Okay.
meditation. Yeah, it would be nice.
Right.
Yeah, I can just relax, enjoy it.
Okay. You will get a blessing, absolutely. It's not just possible, it's inevitable. Bulipeka, can you join in the blessing at the end? Because you know the blessing. Okay. So the day is coming to a close, but there is something missing from this retreat, which is the practice of loving kindness. So I'd like to invite everyone here, if you wish, to join in with the meditation on loving kindness. It will be fairly brief, so just pick up whatever works for you, and if you have your own way of practicing, or if something comes spontaneously that feels right for you at this time, then just trust your own intuition, your own inner wisdom about what's right for you at this time. So, as in all types of meditation, but especially loving kindness, let's just begin by asking our body if there's anything we can do at all to give it more comfort and ease, to alleviate whatever unpleasant feelings, whatever tension, tightness or strain we're experiencing in the body right now. Even if you're quite comfortable already, there might be some way that you can bring even more comfort and ease to your own body and therefore your mind. So once again, really listening in. To your inner world. Just gently and lightly, with a sense of curiosity and care. Noticing any sensations, physical feelings that arise, and receiving them with kindness, with kindly eyes. Allowing that kindness to settle things down. By simply allowing them to be. And just noticing the atmosphere in this room, perhaps sensing the friendliness, the sense of spiritual companionship, sense of safety, even warmth. And allowing yourself to relax into that sense of friendship, a container of kindness, of warmth. Knowing you're accepted just as you are. And see if you can connect to a sense of your own goodness. Perhaps the goodness, the purity of your intentions to be kind, to be generous, to be forgiving. Your willingness to walk on this path for the benefit not only of yourself, but for all beings. Perhaps appreciating a particular quality that you recognize in yourself, such as gratitude or patience. Maybe a willingness to admit your mistakes, a willingness to try. And allow any gladness that arises through this recollection of your own goodness to soak right through your body and mind. Perhaps connecting to any feelings in your body that are neutral or maybe pleasant, feelings of relaxation or ease. And allowing them to soak through every cell. And to radiate through your mind, brightening, gladdening, uplifting your mind. And as this feeling of well-being and ease increases, it becomes so strong it starts to radiate outwards into this room. As though there's maybe a very gentle, soft energy or light emanating out from your body or from your heart to everyone here, soaking them through with thoughts and feelings of loving kindness, recognizing the beautiful qualities in everyone here. Everyone we're seated with has those same kind and beautiful, noble intentions to walk on this path, to develop in kindness, in generosity, to develop patience and forgiveness, no matter how hard it might sometimes feel. Everyone here has beautiful, pure, noble intentions that are worthy of praise by the wise. So just imagining this beautiful golden light, these feelings of ease, of happiness, of love, spreading to everyone in this room. Relaxing them, soothing them, bestowing upon them thoughts of loving kindness, truly wishing them well. May all of us here be happy, truly happy. May we all be at ease. May we all be safe and healthy. May we all find inner peace. And just gently allowing this metta that we're developing together to start spreading through the windows, through the doors, in every direction, to cover this whole city of Oxford and all the people going about their business, going about their day. May all beings, human and non-human, in this beautiful city, may they all be happy, be safe, be free. Imagining this combined loving kindness spreading in this way and actually bestowing a sense of peace on all beings in this area. Visible beings and invisible beings. beings who are large, beings who are small, right down to the tiniest little insect. May all beings be happy and well. May all beings be safe, free from fear. May all beings find peace. And just allow this metta now to spread outwards and unbounded in every direction, as far as it will, radiating outward, carrying this message of peace throughout the world. To all beings, those who are living wisely, kindly, on the whole, and those who are involved in harmful or destructive behaviors, may all beings find peace. Imagining this loving kindness, this peace, spreading and covering this whole beautiful planet Earth. With a golden glow. Or maybe a white sheet, a beautiful white cloak, carrying the message of peace. Imagining that for a moment all conflict ceases, all wars, all hatred subsides. And all beings, human or non-human, people from every race, of every gender, every background, age, sexual orientation, whoever they are, all beings find a way to live in peace. Perhaps this loving kindness continues to spread out into the universe, where there may be different forms of life. Beyond the senses, beyond what we can even imagine. Spreading so far that the whole universe itself seems to radiate this benevolence, this sense of love, unconditional love and peace. Perhaps using that beautiful image that Ajahn Brahmali shared, it's as though all the stars in the galaxies are twinkling with love, twinkling with metta, with benevolence. On all beings, connecting us in our shared happiness and suffering, pleasure and pain. Enabling us to forgive. And to live in peace. So just relaxing here for a while with this sense of boundless love and allowing yourself to receive this beautiful, unconditional, benevolent loving kindness available to us. You are one among all beings. So just see if you can receive this beautiful loving kindness and allow it to relax, to heal, to free your mind. So staying connected to any feelings of ease, of pleasure, of joy, lightness, softness in your body and mind. I'm going to chant the final blessing for the day with Venerable Upekkha to spread more loving kindness to everyone here. Sabbe sata, sabbe pana, sabbe bhuta, sabbe pugala, sabbe atabhawa pariyapana, sabba itiyo, sabbe purisa, sabbe ariya, sabbe anariya, sabbe deva, sabbe manusa, sabbe vinipadika, avivahontu, abhyapajahontu, anigahontu, Sukhiyatanam pariharantu dukkha munjantu yadalada sampatito mawe gachantu kamasaka. Giving you a couple of moments before we do the 3 sadhus. You know what's coming. Big ones, okay. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very, very wonderful. Thank you so much. The time went too fast, but it's not quite over because we do have a few announcements to make, and it would be wonderful if you could stay and end the day with us. So I think we're going to invite Jenny to come and speak and let you know how you can continue to find us and be involved and access these beautiful teachings. So I do hope you've had a wonderful day, and we'll do more thank yous after that.
Yeah, so it's talking about dana. Thank you, first of all, so much for that brilliant day today, Ajahn and Venerables. Such generous, rich, deep, wide teachings. And yeah, offered in a real spirit of generosity, as they have been done for 2,500 years since the time of the Buddha. So for those of you who don't know, I think many people will know, this is a tradition of offering teachings for nothing because they're seen as priceless, and we can't really put a value on that. For thousands of years, monastics have been offering these teachings free of charge, and then out of their generosity, and that it kind of invokes a feeling of generosity in people who are being taught, us lay people, to then offer something back to help them continue in this way. And it's a beautiful symbiotic thing that actually is such a wonderful template for a great way of living, and so important. Hold on, I've made a couple of notes. So yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. As I think many know, Venerable Chanda is establishing the first ever bhikkhuni, that is fully ordained Buddhist nun, monastery here in the UK in the Theravada tradition. And it's a great place up on Boar's Hill. It's being established. I went there I went to the old place for a week, and I've visited the new one, and it's beautiful. You can visit, you can go and stay for a week. Venerable Chanda and Upeka offer teachings regularly online, so through the website you can access these. You can access metta on Saturday mornings and other things, and a sutta class. You can also go and stay. It really is a brilliant place. And really, really needs our support, and that's part of what all this Ajahns speaking tour has been raising funds for. So, yeah, also women can fully ordain as nuns for the first time ever in the UK. This is huge. It's a huge thing. So yeah, so in order to support it, today the money that we've already paid just went on costs, I think, for the hall and expenses, and actually anything else that we can offer is greatly appreciated. It's a practice. Because actually the amount of funds needed to set up a new place are not small. So I think the new building needed a lot of work. There's been a lot of things like that. So actually they do need our support. So yeah, it depends on our ability, so it's a practice. If we can offer what feels wholesome, what feels like Sila, I guess, what helps us feel that we are giving within our means. So don't put yourself out of pocket, but also don't go away feeling a bit mean. It's a practice, and that's why there's no kind of amount, no suggested amount put on it, because it's going to be hugely different for everyone. So yeah, offer what feels right. And in terms of practicalities, there are so many ways of offering. There's a bucket out the front where you can put things in, and you can have an envelope like this for gift aid. These you can see a link to the website, and you can offer there. You can set up a standing order and offer something regularly. That's what I do. There are probably other ways. There's time, food. Yeah, and if
we do have a lot of food though. I think bills are more pressing.
Bills are more pressing than food. Yeah, and if you're local, getting involved and coming along, because it's a really lovely growing community at the moment, which is gorgeous to be a part of. So yeah, I think that's it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Just on top of that, I would like to say that if you don't have time to actually stay overnight, you can come sometimes, depending on our availability too, to just be in the grounds and do a bit of gardening or something like that if you're local. Probably not if you're from Finland, but in that case you have to book in a stay, which is possible. And for those who would like to stay, we're pretty full for the rest of the year, because I will be going to Perth to sit my annual retreat with Ajahn Brahmali will be there as well, and Venerable Upekkha will be there. So, but the place is still there, and we'll be back. So next year will be a good time if you want to make a residential stay. But yes, it's a beautiful community, and as we've been teaching during these last few days, and as the Buddha taught, spiritual friendship is the whole of the holy life, the whole of the spiritual life, because we need to be reconditioned. If we're not reconditioned, we follow our same delusional ways of thinking and seeing the world. So it gives me great pleasure to see a community like this developing. And I know many of you, but not all of you. So it'd be lovely to get to know you further. And lastly, I guess, look up online all the events we do. I'm teaching an online retreat with Ajahn Brahm, and Venerable Upekkha is going to contribute too. Yay! So it's really enriching it. From the 18th to the 20th, and there's still quite a lot of places on that. Even if you can only come for part of it, you're very welcome. And these teachings will also be put on our YouTube channel as well. Lastly, I just would like to thank everyone here, of course, for your practice and Dhamma friendship, and of course for Ajahn Brahmali for the wonderful teachings you've offered today, and also Venerable Upekkha. It's lovely to hear more from you as well, and I thought it was, it's just so nice to hear, because it's different when you hear yourself. You don't really hear yourself, you try not to listen to yourself. Anyway, but for me to hear a bhikkhuni and a bhikkhu teaching, it's really beautiful. So I hope you also enjoyed it very much. And I think that's probably all. Would Ajahn Brahmali like to say anything? Maybe why you're here? Maybe what did you do actually to help the bhikkhuni ordination? Because you did a lot, and I feel very grateful, because actually Ajahn Brahm and Bhante Sujato kind of were more high profile. But why do you support it? In a nutshell.
I don't know if there is a nutshell for this one. The nutshell isn't large enough. The nutshells are small. That's the problem. Nutshells. I don't know if I really want to go into all the history now, but I think bhikkhuni ordination is wonderful, and I think it's very important for Buddhists to be nicely balanced and for giving women the same opportunities as men, and also for hearing the teaching of bhikkhunis, which I often think is, I enjoy it, and I find it enriching, and I find it a bit different from when the bhikkhus or there's males and females have, in my experience, tend to have a slightly different perspective on life, and that's enriching to kind of understand everyone's point of view, everyone's background. So I think it is wonderful and marvelous, and all other superlatives that are available. So anyway, it's been wonderful to be here with you all. So please carry on supporting the bhikkhunis if you can. Venerable Chanda in particular, she's doing a very difficult job. I think it's important to realize that being a pioneer is always very, very hard. And so And also being the boss is very difficult. That's why I'm not the boss, because it's too hard. I don't want to be the boss. So Ajahn Brahmali is there, he takes all the blame and everything. I just kind of chill, I relax and have a good time. This is wisdom for you. It's kind of practical, very practical wisdom. So please, if you have the opportunity, it's wonderful if you can support, because actually it is very difficult. But so I'm very, very happy to be able to support this. And in little ways, just coming here once a year, once every 2 years or whatever. So that's wonderful. And
Twice every year?
Twice every year? That's I think that was in the past. That was last life, I think. Yeah. So, and just to express my appreciation to everyone. Very wonderful to meet you all again. Many of you I know already from the before, and some of you I don't really know. So that's great. And it's just wonderful to have this Dhamma friendship when you travel around the world meeting good people. It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, it's really marvelous. And so I wish you all the very best. Best of luck in your practice. And then hopefully we will meet again, maybe even in this life. We'll see what happens. Yeah. So great. So, okay. Sadhu, sadhu.